Okay, shalom. This is the second video that you should be watching on Monday. This is going to be. You should have already answered questions number 1 through 6 and texted them to me, and on the Chumash, and then 7 through 9 you should have ready for Shir on Friday, and you should have some of those questions answered with you and your Chavrusa. Okay, we're going to be looking now at the Gemara. So I'd like you to open up your Gemaras. Your Gemara should be open to Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Okay, we're going to be looking at the Gemara, if you remember where we were in the Gemara last time, right where it had the big Gimel Mem. So what I'd like you to do now is look one line under the Gimel Mem, the third word in. What we're going to do now is we're going to be translating the Gemara, simple translation of the Gemara. And after we translate the Gemara, what we're going to be doing is if you look at your Sugya sheet number 22, which you should have in front of you, there's a 9-step fill in the blank. This 9-step is the Shakla V'Taya. This is the back and forth in the Gemara. We're going to be looking at a machlokas between Rebbe and the Chachamim. Rebbe was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. He was the author of the Mishnah. And this Gemara quotes a debate between him and the Chachamim as to what language Shema must be recited in. The Chachamim are going to say that Shema can be recited in any language, and Rabbi Yehuda is going to say that, exactly the opposite. The Chachamim are going to say it has to be said I was correct. Rebbe says it has to be said in Lashon HaKodesh, and Chacham say it can be said in any language. When I say Lashon HaKodesh, I know we generally call it Hebrew, but Hebrew is not Lashon HaKodesh. Hebrew is modern day Hebrew. It's what we speak on the streets of Israel, whether it be in Dizengoff Square in Tel Aviv or Rehov Ben Yehuda in Yerushalayim, or on the Midrachov in Netanya. That's modern day Hebrew, and that's what we learn in Ivrit class. What we're talking about is Lashon Kodesh. It's the language of the Torah, and the question becomes whether or not Shema has to be said in Lashon Kodesh, or Shema can be said in any language. This is very applicable to us since we are not natural speakers of Lashon Kodesh. We don't generally speak Lashon Kodesh, and a lot of times it takes us a while to understand what Shema and our tefillos are saying. So this is a good question for us if we're allowed to say Shema in a different language. Okay, and this is obviously going to connect from our discussion of whether or not we can, when it talks about proper kavanah, if we have to have that third level of kavanah where we understand what the words mean. Okay, so we're going to look at the Gemara now. Again, we are the second line under the big Gimel Mem on Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. For those of you that don't have it, turn to somebody in the class to help you. What I would advise is that instead of trying to fill out the chart as I'm talking, which is going to require you to pause frequently, what I would suggest is taking notes in the Gemara, and then after you take notes in the Gemara, I would suggest that you then fill out the chart afterwards when you review the Gemara with your Chavrusa. And the substitute in the room, this is a joint effort. The students are allowed to learn with one other person. Okay, and again, this 9-step chart, you're going to text me your answers by tomorrow morning at 8:15, 10:35, or 2:50 p.m., depending on which class you're in. Okay, so here we go with the Gemara. Tana Rabbanan. Okay, the tough Resh stands for Tana Rabbanan. So our rabbis taught in a Braisa. Okay, so the rabbis taught in a Braisa. Kriya Shema Kichsava Divrei Rebbe. Right, Kriya Shema has to be said in the way it is written, in the language that is written. Those are the words of Rebbe. Rebbe's opinion is Kriya Shema Kichsava. Okay, that Kriya Shema must be said in the way that it is written. Kichsava means that the way it's written. So Kriya Shema has to be said in the way that it is written. That's Rebbe's opinion. The Chachamim Omrim B'chol Lashon. The Chachamim say that it has to be recited in any language. Okay, so that's the machlokas between Rebbe and the Chachamim, that whether Kriya Shema has to be said in Lashon HaKodesh, the way it was written in the Torah, right, the way that God transcribed it to Moshe Rabbeinu, or could it be recited in any language? Okay, so that is the machlokas, and those are our first two steps. Okay, so the Gemara now, in its third step, right, the first two steps are Rebbe and the Chachamim stating their position. What the Gemara is going to do now is really a back and forth. It's going to say to Rebbe, well, how do you answer the Chachamim's charge? And it's going to say to the Chachamim, how do you answer Rebbe? Right? Each of them are going to present proofs. Rebbe is going to present proofs, and the Chachamim are going to present proofs to their position. The Gemara is going to be challenging them back and forth as to their proofs. Okay, that's what we're going to be seeing now. a back and forth where the Chum are going to present the proof, then the Gemara is going to say, Rebbe, what do you do with the proof? Then the Rebbe is going to present the proof, and they're going to turn to the Chum and say, how do you deal with his proof? Okay, that's how this is going to go back and forth. My taima de Rebbe. So the Gemara opens up with a question. It challenges Rebbe's position first. Rebbe again held that Shema must be recited kichsava, in the language that it was written. Okay, so in Lashon HaKodesh. So they ask Rebbe, my taima de Rebbe, what's Rebbe's reasoning? Now, when we say my taima, it's not asking why, it's asking where does Rebbe get this from? Okay, where does he get this from? And the Gemara says, Amar Kra v'hayu. Okay, so there's a pasuk in Shema that says v'hayu. Okay, v'hayu means and they shall be. Rebbe learns from that word of v'hayu and they shall be. He learns b'havayasan you, that they, the words of Shema, should be today as they were then. In other words, just as Shema was said then in Lashon HaKodesh, so too Shema should be recited today in Lashon HaKodesh. Now, that might not be a blow-away proof for you. What we're going to have to do is explain how Rebbe sees, what's the conceptual idea behind what Rebbe sees from that word in the pasuk v'hayu, until he understands Shema kichsava. Again, the proof is Rebbe simply saying that a conceptual idea is reflected in that word. Later on, as when I return, that's going to be our real iyun work, our real lumdus, our real analytical trying to attempt to explain the Gemara. We're going to be asking ourselves the question of what does Rebbe understand when he says v'hayu? What is he understanding? How does that relate to kichsava? But Rebbe proves his point from the word v'hayu. Okay, v'haviyason you, that the words of Shema should always be just as they were then. They should always be now in Lashon HaKodesh. So now the Gemara turns to the Rabbanon and asks the Rabbanon, well, where do you get your position from? Okay, so they turn to Rabbanon, my taimahu, right? It's the same words, my taimahu, but since the Rabbanon were many people, it's the rabbis in general, the majority opinion here, right? So we turn to the Rabbanon, we say my taimahu in plural. What is the rabbi's reasoning that they say that Shema could be recited in any language? What do they say? Amar Kra, the pasuk says Shema. It says the word Shema, right? Which means, right, Shema, all of our Siddurim have done us a disservice because they translate the word Shema as in modern Hebrew, which means to hear. Here's a perfect example of where Lashon HaKodesh differs from modern day Hebrew. The word Shema in the Chumash doesn't mean to hear really, it means to understand. So the pasuk says the word understand. In which case the Rabbanan learn from that, B'chol Lashon She'ata Shomea, that you should recite Shema in any language that you understand. Right? That's the Shema. So the Gemara questions Rebbe, right? That is our fourth step. Okay? That's our fourth step. So now the Gemara is going to ask a question on Rebbe. Okay, for our fifth step, the Gemara is now going to turn to Rebbe and say to Rebbe, okay, hold on a second now. All right? The Chachamim presented a proof from the word Shema. Now here's a general rule. When you're learning, when there's a word in the Torah, the words in the Torah all teach us a lesson beyond their simple meaning. Right? Sometimes the lessons are philosophical, many times the lessons are legal. Right? And the choice of words that God chose, one word versus the other, or the order that God chose, each teach us a different law. And that's the question that we have here. Right? The Gemara questions Rebbe's opinion. And it's going to say to Rebbe, listen, the Rabbanon learned from the word Shema that b'chol lashon she'ata shomea, in any language that you hear. Right? That's what the Chachamim learned. So Rebbe, Shema is a pasuk in the Torah both according to you and to the Chachamim. So here's the question, Rebbe. What do you do with the word Shema? Now let's see that inside. Okay, so we understand. But what we're up to now is Rebbe presented his position, the Chachamim presented their position, Rebbe presented a proof from the word V'hayu, and the Chachamim present a proof from the word Shema. So now we have, if you had a chart in your minds, okay, or we wrote a chart down, right? So we would have Rebbe's position, the Chachamim's position, Rebbe's proof, and the Chachamim's proof. Okay, that's what we would have now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go diagonal. Okay, and we're going to say, how do each of you deal with the other person's proof? Okay, so Rebbe Nami, but according to Rebbe as well, Hachsiv Shema. It also says Shema, right? So how do you deal, right, in our diagonal sort of chart way, how do you deal with the Chachamim's position, right? How do you take the Chachamim, which they use the proof of Shema, how do you learn the Shema? What does the word Shema teach you, okay? And that's the question the Gemara asks on the Chachamim. So, so Rebbe answers as follows. Hahu mibayile. Right? So we need that word Shema to teach us a different law. It has nothing to do with the language that you recite Shema in. This is a completely different law. And what's that law? Hishamea laznecha ma she'ata motzei mipicha. Okay? Hashmea laznecha ma she'ata motzei mipicha. You have to take the words that you say, and they have to be audible to your ears. Many times, we recite words and we either mumble them or recite them too quietly that even we can't hear them. Shema must be enunciated out loud, which is one of the reasons in our minyan we recite the Shema with the words out loud, right? And we sing them together. We lay them according to the trup, according to the tune in the Torah together, because there's this halacha that I have to hear what I'm saying. I can't think of the words in my mind. I can't say Shema in my mind and say, it's got to be Shema Yisrael, right? That's how I've got to say Shema, where I can hear the words. So Rebbe understands the Chachamim's proof was from the words Shema, which taught them that it has to be said in any language that they understand. Rebbe takes that same word and brings it around to learn something completely different. What does he take it to learn? He understands the word Shema comes to teach us that you have to be able to hear anything that you're saying in Shema. That's what that is exactly what Rebbe learns from the word Shema. Good? That was our sixth step. Okay? Now, I guess whose turn it is to face the grill, right? So the Chachamim now, right, they're going to have to deal with this halacha. In other words, if Rebbe learns this word from Shema, okay, and Rebbe learns this law from Shema that you have to hear what you have to say. So the Chachamim are going to be turned to and they're going to say, well, where do you learn this law from? Right? If Rebbe learns it from Shema, so where do you get this law from? You can't say you learned it from Shema because we can't learn two different laws from the same pasuk. So if Rebbe learns this law that has to be audible, right? Where is he going to get that from? Okay. So So where does he get that from? So the rabbis say like this: the Rabbanan Sabri Lahu Command Amar. The Rabbanan hold of the opinion as follows, that says Lo Hishma La'azno Yatza, that somebody that doesn't hear the words of Shema, right? They say Shema quietly to themselves in their mind, or they say it too softly for even themselves to hear. They're still Yotzei. They still fulfill their mitzvah. In other words, the Rabbanan hold that saying Shema out loud is not a chiyuv. It's not an obligation. Rather, what is it? Rather, listening to Shema is what we call lichatchila. It's ideal to be able to hear the words of Shema out of your mouth and into your ears. That's ideal, but you're still yotzei if you don't. So we don't need a pasuk to tell us that law, because that law is not obligatory. So when Rebbe takes the Chachamim's proof of that you have to say Shema, and that you can say Shema in any language, which comes from the word Shema, and Rebbe uses that to teach me a different chiyuv, which is that Shema has to be audible to my own ears, right? So there, the Rabbanan turn around and say, well, we're not really concerned with that law because we don't hold that law is true. We don't hold that you have to hear what you say in Shema. Okay, so now there's one stage that we haven't covered yet. Okay, well, there's a few stages, right? But the one stage we haven't covered yet is, remember, Rebbe had presented a proof to his position. Rebbe's position again was that Shema has to be said in Lashon HaKodesh. And where does it come from in Lashon HaKodesh? Rebbe learns that from the word V'hayu, that just as Shema was written in Lashon HaKodesh, and that's the way it was supposed to be back then, so too today, it lasts today to say the word of Shema should be in Lashon HaKodesh today as well. But the question now is presented to the Rabbanan. Here's the Rabbanan's question. Rabbanan, what do you do with Rebbe's proof of the word V'hayu? Okay, so the Rabbanan Nami, but according to the rabbis as well, Hachsiv V'hayu. It says the word V'hayu, right? So it says V'hayu according to the Rabbanan. So what do the Rabbanan say with that? So hu mibayi lahu shelo yikra lemafreya. So the Rabbanan learn. What do they learn from that word? That you can't say Shema out of order, right? The Rabbanan, just like Rebbe used the Rabbanan's proof of the word Shema to teach us something, a different law altogether, the law that you have to hear what you're saying. So the Rabbanan make the same move with Rebbe's proof. Oh, Rebbe, you think the word V'hayu comes to teach you that you have to say the words of Shema in an audible tone? No, that's not what it's teaching us. What it's teaching us is something completely different. What it teaches us is that the words of Shema have to be said the words of Shema have to be said in order. They cannot be said out of sequence. Okay, that is the Rabbanan learn from the word of Shema. Okay, that's what they learn. Okay, now let's go on. Okay, Rebbe. So now we turn to Rebbe and we say to Rebbe, we're going to challenge you. The Rabbanan just brought up a law that you have to say Shema in order that it can't be said out of sequence. Well, Rebbe, that's a law. Where do you get that from? So the Gemara says, Rebbe, right? So Shelo Yikra Lemafreya Manale. Where do you know that you can't recite Shema out of order? Nafkale me Dvarim Hadvarim. So he gets it from a different limud. He gets it from a different learning from Psukim, from the words Dvarim Hadvarim. Okay, so he takes the words Dvarim and Hadvarim, which means that really the word Dvarim in Shema could be said Dvarim. It's said Ha Dvarim with an extra Hey, which teaches us the words must be said in order. Now the Gemara, in the last step, the Gemara turns to the Chachamim, and the Gemara, the Rabbanan, to the rabbis. Now, what do you do with Dvarim? So Rabbanan, Dvarim, lo darshe. They don't learn anything special from that hey that could be extra. They say that hey, we don't learn anything from there. There's no legal consequence to that extra hey. Okay, those are the 9 steps of the Gemara. What I want is by tomorrow morning, let's see the times here, by tomorrow morning, my senior shir by 8:15, in my freshman shir by 10:35, and in my junior shir by 2:50, I would like you to text me those 9 steps. Okay, text me or email me. Okay, those 9 steps. You have my cell phone information. You have my email. You should have the iPad sitting in front of you. Those are the 9 steps. I'd like you to text them to me or email them to me by tomorrow morning. If, again, I spoke too fast in this video, I apologize. But here's the best part of the video. I promise I'll repeat it as many times as you need. All you have to do is go down below and press stop, rewind, play. I promise I won't lose patience with however many times you do it. Do it over and over. I don't mind repeating this as many times as possible. Keep doing this and have those 9 answers tomorrow morning. Don't rely on the fact that, we'll just watch the video tomorrow morning early, because if you don't get the video playing on time or people ask to stop or whatnot, by 8:15 you've got to have those answers sent to me, or by 10:35 or by 2:50. Again, if it's too fast and the period's ending soon or time's running out, you can always watch this at home tonight. I'll be happy to come to your house. All you have to do is bring your computer, turn it on, go to my YouTube channel, find this video, and you can play it, no problem. Guys, I miss you tremendously. I really, really do. I know that I'm up in Virginia. Hopefully the weather's okay, but I really do miss you. I'm happy that we're able to learn together by video, and I hope to see you guys soon. Have a great, great day.